feeling bad. Like, I heard it when it happened. You know, you're like, I gotta go. There's something going on. And now, what, one vet trip later?
Yeah. Yeah, and then, yeah, he's going to be an interesting one.
You said he's not out of your stock, right? Like, he's just one that you picked up?
Yeah. Yeah, a friend of mine over the hill had a litter, and he actually gave him to my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had it. And what's funny was we picked him up as a backup plan, just to add depth to the roster, so to speak. And yeah, he's been quite interesting. He's definitely tried my patience, per se. I mean, it's more of like me wondering if there's any brain cells in there, but
Like, what's between the ears?
sometimes, yeah. And
I'm dealing with that too.
I've seen pups like that, and that's just how they are, you know.
And it's funny because you don't know if they're going to mature out of it or if they're really just dirt ditter. I mean, like, I'm dealing with it right now too. I got a couple that, like, I mean, we made the cross because it was going to be gangbusters, but by God, I got to live with them long enough to get them to the woods, and they're a little rattle-headed. Yeah, I know what you mean. It's just different, you know.
I know.
But
I've said before, I've had hounds for quite a while, and that was a first. That was a first. I've never seen that from a large hound trying to climb the chain link and then getting their flank stuck in the chain link and about skinning themselves, literally. Even to this day, I don't even know how he did it.
he's got to be starting to heal back up, though, huh?
Yeah, he is.
It's probably pretty clean, I'm guessing.
Yeah, he had, man, I don't know, like 40, 50 staples in him. It was quite a bit. And so, yeah. And I'll admit, I'm not afraid of it. I need to get some type of medical kit, just because I think that some of that vet bill could have been avoided.
You know, funny story. I know a place that you can get those medical kits.
Really?
If you want to check out dusupply.com. Thanks for now we can cross that off the list right away, man. Thank you.
I totally set you up for that. That was the alley-oop for the slam.
No, I appreciate it. You'd be amazed at how many alley-oops you can serve and people swing and miss. But no, thank you. We've got our plug out in the first 3 minutes. We're good to go the rest of the podcast now.
There we go.
Oh, no, it sucks. I got lucky. I mean, my wife was a certified vet tech and managed a vet clinic here in town. So, and luckily our vet bills were pretty low over the years. And still, I mean, to this day, except for supplies, you know, like antibiotics and things like that, that's all changed over the last couple of years. But no, it is pretty handy, man. I mean, joking aside, in the med kits, like having something like that. I mean, I've tried to carry something with me all the time over the years, like staple gun, some kind of tourniquet, you know, antiseptic of some kind, and something to hold stuff that should be in there, you know, like bandages, vet wrap, you know, whatever. But it doesn't take a lot. You know, people think of packing a bunch of stuff, but really, I mean, you can, even those full rolls that we sell, they're not that big. They're like, what? 8 inches in diameter. You know, they're like a sleeping bag when you roll them up, you know, a lot smaller than that, but same idea. It's like a trauma kit where you like roll them out. Mm-hmm. But like, shoot, you get a regular Ziploc bag and fill it with a stapler and a few little things that you need. You know, it's not like it's a lot of extra weight to pack. And I guarantee I've been like regretful I didn't have it with me more when I forgot it. The last go around, I'll tell you, this was pretty funny. So we're out hunting, and I don't know what happened to this dog's ear. Like, she must have hung it on a piece of barbed wire or something in the area, because she was bleeding like a stuck pig. Oh. And the only thing that I had was like one of the kids' pull-ups. You know, luckily we got small kids, so there's always pull-ups or wipes in the truck. And I'm like, crap, I'm just going to wrap this on there. And we, you know, got the bleeding stopped. But I thought, God, you can't leave that out here in the woods. Like You know what I mean? I'm like, I don't want to be rolling around in my truck with it like this, but yeah, a diaper will work in a pinch, guys, if you really need to stop bleeding.
Man, ears are the toughest. Holy smokes.
Right?
God, it seems like they just never quit.
Danny stitched one up one time. I was just training puppies, like sent drags up in the mountains, and I had kept 3 pups, and I was trying to make my final cut. And we're dragging, this hide around, and they're playing. Well, somebody just nipped an ear as they were grabbing for the hide. Well, they stripped, I don't know, 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch of that main vein that runs right along the edge.
Yeah.
And I luckily I had cell service, and I called my wife Danny, and I said, this dog, like, I need you to have everything ready when I get home, because I don't know if we're gonna make it home. That's a main vein, and it was pumping blood. And all I could think of what I had, I was just in my regular rig. I wasn't even in my hunting truck. It was like nothing. I had a glove, and it was the middle of summer, so it was just powder duff dirt. And I told her, I'm sorry, but all I did was pack that thing full of that powdery dust and pack it around that ear, roll it up. And I said, it's going to be a mess for you to clean up, but it's the only way I could think to get it stopped where, I was alone.
Yeah.
So she cussed me the whole time she was cleaning it, but she stitched that vein back together, like closed it off and stitched it, and then tucked it back in and stitched the ear around it. I was blown away.
Wow.
Pretty handy, because them ears are nasty when they get going.
Yeah, they're horrible. Yeah.
On to bigger and better stuff, though. I felt bad, man. Like our conversation last time got cut short, and you told me what happened, and I was feeling bad for you, man.
Yeah, it is what it is. When you have hounds, you kind of expect stuff like that to happen, and
yeah,
I was more upset about him not really being all that, or really thinking about it per se. In relative terms, right? It is a dog, it is a hound, but sometimes they do things, and I'm sure a lot of the listeners could agree. You just sit there and you stare at what happened, and you're kind of like, how
are you thinking?
Like, how did you do this? Like, I want to know how. I'm more curious as to how than anything else. It's just like, this doesn't make any sense, but whatever.
Yeah. How old is he?
8 months now.
Is he like making the program, you think, or is he pretty on the fence?
He's on the fence right now, but we'll see. We'll see.
You're just getting up and going for the winter, aren't you?
Yeah, later than I wanted. I've had some big game hunts that I wanted to finish out, and then I'm kind of getting a slow start, but that's okay. Not a big deal. It's not really how you start; it's how you finish.
Right.
But,
yeah. Well, that's kind of what we were getting on. I know he's not like part of your program per se, and you said you were trying to add some depth to the roster. Is that what you said? That was great.
Yeah. I kind of
that.
I view my dogs, or at least my hounds, as a team, and what I can add and what I'm missing to the roster, and go out and see what we can do. That's just. I've been in sports pretty much all my life, and so I still play currently, but so my head's always in the game, and it's even funny even analyzing it day by day. I'm just I take mental notes, and then I'll come home and write notes down on who did what they did, and kind of like from a coach's perspective of, okay, what did I do to put them in the situation? Did I set them up for success, or did I set them up for failure? Or I just take little notes, and if there's trends going on, good or bad, I note those down and kind of go from there, but that's just how I see it. That's just my perspective. And I know it's not common thought, but it's a perspective nonetheless,
Oh, I think it's more common than, you would think. Like a lot. It is a team. Unless I think the eastern side of the states, like obviously that's a way different dynamic. You know, they're looking at like it's more like I think of it like cross country running. Like you're competing for yourself versus, you know, out here it's more of a pack mentality, and you got to build like it's like a chess game kind of. Like we're building the pieces, and it takes all of them or a combination to do it. Like, yeah, we might get that 1 in a million do it all rock star, but you really got to think about pack dynamics when you're building.
Yeah, and it's a process. You know, and you know, speaking the difference between the two, which is probably a great segue for our topic today.
That was on purpose.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
If anybody's listening, I'm getting way better at this podcasting.
Yeah, no, that's good. And you know, the thing that we just, I mean, cat's kind of out of the bag for everybody is, you know, we were going to talk about papers, and it's a hot topic. It's a hot topic for sure.
This started with me getting a message late one night that says, "Hey, I listened to your podcast," and that was the Papers Need Grade one with Cody Hilliard. And he said, "That didn't go the way I was thinking." We're on here for like this is not a part 2, but Stephan and I have talked a bit kind of about this in past conversations too. So I know there's some things that you were wanting to touch on and some encouragement for people and also some like red flags, like, hey, keep an eye out for some of these things.
Yeah. And, you know, Cody, I'll address before I get going here. I want to address what Cody said. And Cody had a really good opinion and really kind of a perspective on things. And that's something to think about, you know. You know, the goal today is just to have a general open discussion about papers and what they mean, and per se, as far as like what they mean to us, what they mean to other people and stuff like that. I mean, I think, you know, from our conversations before, I think we could both agree that the general consensus of Western hunters, and it's not all, I'm not saying it's all, but the general consensus is you hear the common phrase, well, you can't hunt papers. And
right.
And I would agree with that to a certain extent, and I'll explain that in a minute. But I get it. A lot of folks can get hung up on those papers, and this is like the end all be all situation to, I know what I have is gold. You know what I mean? And you potentially could, but I think that for the guys and gals out in the East and the Midwest that are night hunting, there's a lot of weight that goes into that. Sure. There's a lot of hard work. There's a lot of thought. Even
the behind the scenes is crazy. The pairings and the relationships that are built. I mean, because I will stand by that. Like, people cannot say I'm a paper or not. Like, to me, it's completely irrelevant. And I know you and I have talked about this before, but having your act together and having documentation, whether you handwrite it or it's done through a professional registry, whatever, like, I think people get so hung up on that, and it drives me nuts because they'll discredit one, you know, both ways when there's no reason to. It just shows, like, I can tell you if I had to start from scratch and I go to a guy that can tell me about grandma and grandpa and how good of dogs they were, or I can look at some kind of either handwritten pedigree or a printed pedigree that goes back 7 generations, and you're recognizing stuff, like that's the kind of stuff that this guy, you know, their hard work is putting forward. It's tracking that lineage.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot can be said to those type of folks. And just so folks are aware, I'm not going to drop any names. I'm not going to be talking about people in that manner. I'm talking in generalities. You know, there's a lot of people, and you know who you are out there, that have busted your tail, so to speak. Yeah. And you have dogs' names written down on a piece of paper as far as the generation goes. Let me tell you, there's nothing wrong with that. It's still papers. And I think the mindset and the perspective needs to potentially change a little bit and think of it from that manner, because like I was saying the other day, if a guy knows what you're looking for as far as a style of dog or a certain consistency of traits, it behooves that breeder or the individual shopping to ask those questions and to look at that. And if the breeder's doing things right, then you'll know, okay, so this guy actually is taking it a little more serious than the average person. And I mean, it's, yeah, okay, so it doesn't have like, and I'm not making fun of UKC or AKC, but it's like you don't have the pretty paper with the nice, pretty lettering and stuff like
The
that. Like,
watermarks.
yeah, like, and again, I'm not making fun of UKC and AKC. It's a time and place, and I'm not saying anything. I'm not knocking the coon hunters. Each have
That
their own.
paper is their product, right? I mean, like, really, they're a
Right.
company,
Mm-hmm.
and you pay them for a service, and it's you could have the same set of papers with different registry names on them, basically.
Yeah, yeah, and so I just kind of like what Cody was talking about. There's a lot of different styles. There's a lot of different breeds for a reason. Um, and a guy has to come to the conclusion of, well, and I feel like sometimes we we all beat a dead horse and tell some of the new guys or somebody who's hasn't quite figured it out yet, like, well, you just need to know what you want. That's,
Yeah,
in my mind, that's no better than a teacher or your boss coming up to you and saying, hey, Jason, do better.
right.
Right on. what
How?
what am I doing? I'll just do
Like, what
better.
do I know what I'm looking for?
Like, just do better. Yeah, okay, whatever. But
That's how that goes down. No, I'm just kidding.
no, it just, I've seen, and I think we all have. I mean, when I first got into dogs, I was kind of into the night hunts. I mean, I'm from the West, and I really didn't know much. Very naive, you could say, in like, oh yeah, this night hunting stuff seems fun. Comp hunting seems fun. So I've left it, and to be honest, I never competed. I went to some night hunts a couple times just to see how it was and see if it was my jam. But I
Right.
can I can see from that perspective how important it is to be thoughtful about breeding and to be thoughtful about papers and stuff like that. Um, what's crazy is the amount of how money has changed per se over the years.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of keep a pulse on it just to just see who's in it, who's winning, that kind of thing. And I've always been into um, paying attention as to who's the top producing studs. And
Sure.
well, I think I used to subscribe to Coonhound Bloodlines, and I'd immediately go to the back page. Excuse me. I go to the
And check
back
your
page.
top reproducers.
Yeah, and I would just look at, and it'd be
Yep.
all of them. It wasn't specific to walkers or anything like that. It just fascinated me,
Yeah.
the top producers and how they kept track of that, and then looking at some of the dams and stuff like that. But um, I know even out here, the Western folks kind of keep to ourselves, and that seems to be like the bread and butter, on this side of the country. It seems like, and I know there's quite a few gentlemen um, that essentially do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
They don't really talk about it. It's like small circles, but they put quite a bit of effort into it. And I think there's something to be
Yeah.
said about that too.
Do you notice? I mean, I might side topic you here, but like you say, these guys that put in a little more effort. Do you find that most of those guys are operating out of a single kennel, or it's a collaborative amongst multiple kennels and collaborating like notes, crossbreedings? What do you think?
I've seen both. I think you have to have a pretty good team and a pretty good friends or business partners, however you view yourselves, in order to make that thing run flawless.
Yeah.
As let me rephrase that, as flawless as possible, right?
As possible.
I mean,
No, I agree.
And I say that because it's like you try to do your best, and sometimes you have hiccups that were unforeseen.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why, as flawless as possible, but it's not as common, I don't think, out here versus it seems like in the Midwest and in the East. We see a lot of guys pairing up, kind of business
Partnering
partners
on
type
dogs.
thing, and hearing about it and stuff like that. Excuse me, which is, for them it works out.
Mm-hmm.
But I see a lot of solo guys,
Yeah.
and I get it. I get it.
Because
There's
you're
a
in
lot of shice.
control.
Yeah, I
I
get it, but
mean,
I mean, let's be honest here and not bullshit anybody. There's a lot of shystiness out there on both sides of the court, and it's just it's how it goes, and I get it from that perspective of I want to be in control of everything. I will control, who my pups go to or who my young dogs go to, versus you know some guy who's just knows how to sweet talk and get something, and then will quickly turn around and badmouth you for X, Y, and Z.
mm-hmm.
Um,
I think it's hard sometimes, like from the other side, it's hard to find people to work with. Like, I think, especially when you're working with dogs, it's no different than horses or other stock. Like, for some reason, you get the human elements with the variable of livestock or dogs, things get amplified. But if you can find somebody that you can work with, like, it is hard to run a breeding program with one person if you are not fully committed. That's all that you do, because you're having to test multiple generations. It depends on how deep you go, right? Like, how many generations are you keeping? What's your breeding program? Are you looking at the next cross, or are you breeding for 2 down the road? Like, what's your spectrum? It's a lot for one guy, to hunt and feed and do all of the back work. But I don't know. That's just my opinion. I think if you could find somebody, and like you said, it's a great idea, but if you can have it go as good as humanly possible, it's nice to have a couple of people on that same page, which I applaud those guys out east. Like, there's a bunch of guys partnering up on dogs, and it works out good for both. But we're different out here.
we are, and that's okay. I think what Cody said too was pretty valid. Before I move on to that, I'll finish on what you were saying. Um, what I find is you have to find somebody who is very very like-minded and as driven as you, but also has or brings different perspectives to the table that you did not think of. You know what I
Right.
mean? It's
Fresh
um,
eyes.
fresh eyes, a fresh mind, um, it's just something along those lines, because it takes a large amount of dedication,
Mm-hmm.
and blood, sweat, and tears. And I understand a lot of folks being upset about things going sour. I get why some folks are just they say the saying, "You can't hunt papers." I get it. But on to what Cody had said was, I think that we both can work together and find something,
Mm-hmm.
as far as making a cross or something like that. I think that some folks would be open to it. I know that some folks wouldn't, because that's just not their program. They're not
Right.
really interested in that. Um, and that's okay. That's fine. But yeah, I don't, man, it's definitely, since this thing's come down, that other Cody's podcast, and some things have popped up. It's definitely some definitely mind provoking, thought provoking is what I'm saying.
It must have
Because
provoked some thought, because you weren't the first one that blew me up about that podcast. Like, it's been, I know it's kind of controversial, but I mean, really, this is exactly why we like that. Like, you and I have talked about this topic 100 times probably before even that podcast I did with Cody.
yeah, and some guys, some guys will swear up and down and say that the only way 100% that you're getting something worthwhile and worth your money and weight in gold is those papers. And that's not entirely true. And then conversely, you may not be getting something at the other end of that either if it doesn't have papers. And I think some folks are potentially missing that. I think. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think the opportunity that a commercial registry brings is nice. You know, like they're doing a UKC hunt up at the club where I really got started with competition stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a dog that I can hunt.
Mm-hmm.
Like, which is, to me, it's unfortunate. I'd love to take my kids up and go hunting and you know, hunt one of their dogs, but I can't because of decisions I've made along the line.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a catch-22. I mean, by me not having that, I am missing out on something I would like to go do with my kids, because it is a totally different experience.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm sorry, man. I keep sidetracking you.
No, you're good. It's okay. It's just part of the discussion, I think, because this topic is it's so tense and it's just so broad. It's hard to cover. It's hard to cover everything, and really, no person is right or wrong in the process. Right. I think that well, I know from personal experience that if somebody, let's just play the buyer situation, okay? You go to a breeder that has papers, and they're paper dogs. Are you? My question to you is, are you asking the right questions? Because there was one time I called a breeder, and I really liked his ads in Coonhound Bloodlines. This was when I was younger, and I wanted a pup out of one of his studs he was advertising. And so I called him up and I was talking to him and I was asking questions, and he was asking me questions. And it caught me off guard at first because I had never talked to somebody who really cared about their stock, and he was asking me questions like the style I hunt, what I'm looking for in a dog, and so on and so forth. And to be honest with you, I didn't really know how to answer him. Granted, I was still young and new and learning and figuring things out. And I told him, what I was looking for. And he goes, "Young man, I truly believe that my dogs are not for you. And I appreciate the phone call, but I just want to let you know I don't think my dogs are for you." And at first, being young, I took it slightly personal, and I was like, "Well, how I thought, what's he saying? Like, I want to buy one of these." But then thinking about it, and obviously, as time goes on in life, and you go through life and experience,
you got the experience now.
Yeah, I totally respect that 100%. Like, and on the breeder side, it's like I'm not gonna let my stock go to somebody who this certain style or mind or whatever doesn't fit. That's just a recipe for disaster.
Sure.
And so I think a lot of that thought needs to be put in on both sides, the buyer and the seller.
Yeah.
And I think that's why you hear a lot of guys say, "I'll go hunt with somebody," which is good. But we have to ask those questions and understand those terms. It took me a long time to understand some of those terms. Like what's
like what?
Like what's drifting? What's a track drifter? what's a cold strike, what's a hot strike, what's just the simple terms and understanding what they are, and then pairing essentially the definitions, so to speak, with the act. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean?
Yeah.
And understanding and be like, oh, okay, well, I see that, I see that, I see that, and then just a guy. Once you see it, a guy knows what they like, but
Yep.
also, but also in the same breath, over time, your likes will change,
Yeah. It morphs for sure.
and it is what it is. And I think a guy and a gal kind of fine tune specifically what they're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so really, I think both good questions from the buyer and the seller need to be talked out. Um, like I was telling you the other day, we all know that prices in the economy is still kind of up. Um, Dog food is not cheap anymore, unless I mean, good for you guys rolling the old Roy. You get the high five,
Yeah. Right. That's
but
gonna pay off finally.
old Roy's not even cheap anymore. But uh,
No.
uh, so what I'm getting at is I encourage a lot of guys and gals that are either buyers or sellers to really think about this process, because your money and time is important. It's very important. I mean, you know, we all have to have jobs in some way, shape, or form in order to do what we have and to have what we have. And that's,
Mm-hmm.
the time to go out and hunt, the time to go enjoy the dogs and stuff like that. And I want to encourage both parties to be thought provoking on the process of what they're doing.
Well, like you said, that guy telling you that his dogs weren't for you. Like, yeah, when we're young and I'd say novice in the sport, that might be an ego check. An ego check's hurt. I mean, it's like a 2x4 sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But dude, that guy saved you probably 2 years of messing with a dog that was never going to be what you wanted. The dog would not get a fair shake. It would cause you frustration. And I'm telling you, I've been in this long enough now, and I've been on the verge of quitting more than once. I would say probably 70% or more. Like, if you're going to quit hound hunting at some point in your life, it's in that first round. Like, when it's tough and you're just trying to make chicken salad out of chicken shit, and it's, every time it's a disaster, there's a lot of room for self doubt. And, just trying to get a pack of dogs built is hard enough. That guy did you a real favor.
Yeah, he did. He did, and I'm forever thankful for him doing that. I am. I truly am. I wish a lot more folks were like him.
Mm-hmm.
I really do, because that gentleman really gives a shit about his dogs. He
Yeah.
really did, and that's something to take away from. Um,
There's value in them.
oh
Like, guys like that, it shows the value, and value doesn't come at no cost. Like,
no,
that has been years and, tough times and countless dollars. And, like, that's why they feel that way about them. They have a value, and you don't give stuff away that's valuable, man. They ain't handing out gold on every street corner.
no. If that was the case, we'd all be rich, and we wouldn't have to
Right.
worry about all this expensive gear and dog food we got to feed.
Yeah. And every puppy would be a winner. I mean, and I hate to
Yeah.
say it, we are a far stretch. The sooner people can remember that, or if you're a new one starting off, not everyone's going to make the dog that you want. It doesn't
No,
mean it won't make a dog, just maybe not the one that you want.
and that's the other part of it too, man. It's like you got to understand that just because you get a rock that has a potential diamond in it doesn't mean when you polish that rock there's a diamond in it, or however you want
Mm-hmm.
to, whatever phrase that you want to use. You ask the questions. Okay, let's go down this road. We ask the questions. Everything sounds good. Okay, cool. We purchased said dog or said pup. Well, it's up to us in order to be good trainers, good houndsmen, raise them right in order to get that final product that was supposedly talked about. If that doesn't happen, why are you upset?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, did you give that pup or that young dog a fair chance, or were you a little too hard on it, or were you XYZ? The
Mm-hmm.
the thing of it too, and I'm glad you said that because uh, be it papers or not, I see that a lot. I see that a lot amongst hunters in general, and that's why you see the guys that know how to work with dogs that are actually good trainers and handlers.
Good. Right.
Man, they're they can bring some good stuff out that some average Joe Blow would have sat there and scratched their head like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know
That'd
what
be
to do.
me. Oh, like I am not a dog trainer. I never will claim to be. I mean, I think we all become that to a degree, and it's kind of like people. There's so many types of people out there. Dogs are the same. Like when you've been in it long
Absolutely.
enough, you can remember, oh yeah, Paisley used to do that exact same thing when this is what we did to get over it. Or this dog, oh yeah, we did a couple of training exercises and it straightened him out. You have more tools in your toolbox, but yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not either. I'll be. I mean, I'm honest. I will not claim to be the world's best trainer. Even if I did receive that award, I would still not claim it because I wouldn't. Because let's be real. If you're not open to life's lessons, uh,
Yeah.
life out of anybody will be the first one to humble you real quick.
Yeah.
And there's always something new to learn every day, and that's how I look at pretty much everything that I do is um, there's something new to learn every day. Yeah, I'll give you an example here. I've got a dog here that I'm having a tricky time figuring out how to work with that dog. It's a different dog than my other ones, and I just having a hard time figuring out how to step into the dog's mind. You know,
Right.
um,
Now,
but
when
on
you
the
say different dog, like different breedings, different mindset, like or how different?
different in that all my other dogs I can talk to like I'm talking to you,
Mm-hmm.
and it's almost like we have is and I know it sounds awkward
Connection.
and weird. We have a connection and we can work. Like
Yeah.
I'll tell one of my other dogs, hey, go up or go down or simple commands, and it just
Mm-hmm.
clicks, right?
Right.
This will, and then if things are rough, I'll just be like, hey, let's go, let's go, let's go. Come on, keep working. I'll say something like that, and away we go. This dog, it's I can't say it's just in one ear and out the other, but we're working. It's not.
Right.
It's not. It's not. It's not like we're quitting. It's not like
Right.
we're doing anything like that. It's just I might as well talk to the wall type of situation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
I've
so
had a few.
it's just interesting, and I like it because it's a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
It's something I haven't experienced, and so I am enjoying the process. Is it a bit annoying at times? Sure, but it's just part of it, and I like it. I really do. But yeah, I mean, I think that I think we put some labels on some of the registered paper dogs, or actually just the papers. Let's just stay on the papers. Um, that are untrue.
Mm-hmm.
I really do, and it on the flip side of that too. Um, there's there's some misconceptions as well about um, dogs that are not papered. The way I see it is if the breeder is spending a lot of time and being thoughtful in the crosses and putting some true thought and cares about their stock, I want to have conversations with said individual.
Right.
The papers or no papers, it is what it is. But you know, on another sub side of that is, if I wanted to start out, it'd be nice to have like a copy of that generation or
Sure.
whatever that has been handwritten on, let's just say a little asterisk on bear. Well,
Mm-hmm.
and I asked that breeder, well, why does bear have this asterisk? Oh, that's because he was super good at drifting tracks. And so I bred him for that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you start putting the puzzle the pieces to the puzzle. I'm sorry, the pieces to the puzzle as to how he ended up at the product that you're getting.
Right. Well,
So,
and when you see that consistently, like when you can go back and look at dogs like, Spring Creek Rock, Lipper, like I'm not name dropping anybody in particular, but those are just recognizable names. You can see traits that have carried on,
mhm.
characteristics that have carried on, but only in groups where guys have stayed really diligent and worked really hard, because those traits are lost so fast, 3 to 4 generations, and you can lose a ton when it comes to what you're looking for in traits, hunt style, things like that. But in the end, you know what? You put a match to it, a dog is still a dog. It doesn't, like, I think we get really hung up, and I know that papers and no papers ruffles feathers. But in the end, what I think you're getting at, and correct me if I'm wrong, is kind of how I feel, is like, papers are papers, but a dog is a dog. Don't discredit it because it doesn't have it, or don't credit it or discredit it because it does. Like, you should be asking these questions, and you should be looking for these traits, like you're saying, talking to people regardless. It doesn't matter what that dog's coming with, a set of papers or not. This isn't, this is across the board. When it comes to hunting and enjoying your own personal dogs, you should be really thinking about what you're asking a breeder.
Yep, that's absolutely correct. And I hope I'm relaying that across and giving some thought as well to maybe someone who hasn't thought of that, and really just talking about it, stepping up to the plate and talking about it, because I think getting wrapped up around papers causes too many fights in this aspect. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
and it's truth. It's truth, because times are changing. We have what's going on with Colorado right now and what they're trying to do, and
Oh yeah. All
but
over right now.
but then we'll be quick to turn around and start talking and arguing about papers and no papers. It's
Mm.
like, the way I see it, you like papers? Sweet, right on. You don't like papers? Sweet, right on.
Right on.
Like, cool. Um, it's just there's a reason why we have so many makes of vehicles in the United States, and there's
Right.
you see so many different kinds.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of along the same lines, but um, I don't know. I'm
Different
glad that
strokes.
I'm glad that I have learned and read some books and talked to some good people about this, and have grown from where I was in the beginning.
Yeah.
Because I'll be honest, I was closed minded. I was closed minded as hell,
I
and
think
I
we all
thought,
are.
you know, it
I
is
think,
what it
yeah,
is.
all of us go through that. Yeah. Some stay there and some move past. But yeah, I think, yeah, I know I was. I'm going to take the world by the horns, and we're going to just be world beaters, and I know what's best. And then you realize real quick, like, dude, you're an idiot. And then you start real growth as a houndsman, as a person. Like, your personal growth versus your growth as a houndsman, I feel like there's a real direct correlation there. At least in being to open your eyes and even saying, dude, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I don't know what to do here. Or just being completely honest about dogs, because just because I love Fluffy and he's a great dog doesn't mean that he's really doing what he needs to do. I'm making an exception because there's a trade-off. I like the fact he doesn't walk in his own poop, so I'm going to look past a little something here that might not, be desirable. But it's really, to me, everybody's got their own taste. But like you said, my buddy explained it like I was steelhead fishing. He says, when you feel the first bite, you know that it's a fish, but you got to catch one to know what it feels like. I'm like, dude, this makes zero sense. But like you said, when you see what you want, it is like, boom, instant, eye-opening. Like, that is what I want in a dog. And it's a pretty cool experience if you get that opportunity. And it makes life a lot easier, and you get a lot more honest a lot quicker.
I agree with that, and that's interesting. You shared that. Like I've said before on the previous podcast, I've had hounds a long time. It feels like it was yesterday. It really does. Mm-hmm. But yeah, when I finally ended up on the stock that I have now, it was just like that. Just like, oh, what the heck? Finally, where the hell have I been?
Yeah, right.
Like, geez.
Now we can focus.
Yeah, we can have some fun now. Not that I wasn't before, but it just, when you, like you said,
it's not the grind. It's different. Once you make that crossover, I think it goes from just a grind to actually really enjoying things and taking things to the next level.
Oh, absolutely. Like today, I went out today and I took two males out today, and of course it was a slow day, didn't see anything, but I dumped them out in the canyon, and I just dropped the tailgate and just sat and listened, just let them run around. 'Cause you
free cast.
I do,
right?
I do free casting. I drive around too, and when the snow, like now, I think I'd be okay, but when the snow's not on or it's not too deep, I'll go ride too. Mm-hmm. But any opportunity I can to see it, and really what I did, my purpose for this morning, it gets me a little giggly. My one male, he's got a pretty nice voice, and so I just was hoping that he'd find something in the canyon this morning, and I just wanted to hear him.
Yeah,
that's it. I just wanted to hear him and just sit there and enjoy. It was a nice morning before the wind stood up, but that's just going along with what we're saying. If you do pay attention to what's going on and you care about what you want and whatnot, then you too can sit on that tailgate or just stand there and enjoy the morning or whatever it is. It's not as much of a struggle. But
yeah,
some of us, like myself, have to do things the hard way in order to get to the end product,
Yeah, I think that's pretty much out of the Houndsman book. I think we're all kind of there.
It'd be like rule number 1 in the Houndsman book: do it the hard way.
Yeah, do it the hard way. End of story. Don't take advice in your first 2-3 years. And yeah, we should. We could go through and make a whole parody of that.
So somebody ought to, just as like a comedic relief for houndsmen.
Right.
Just some funny things that houndsmen do that would just sit there and be like, what was I thinking?
Oh, yeah, how not to get invited back. Didn't we do one like that? I think we did a while ago.
Or with the wife and girlfriend. Wait till the day of your plan and then take the dogs out at the last minute.
Yep. Standard answer. Here's mine. When are you going to be home? Whenever we have all the dogs. That was standard for a lot of years. Oh. That's well, funny. Man, I'm going to put you on the spot then. And I don't expect you to come up with anything super deep on this, but like if somebody's going to look for a puppy, I mean, I'm sure you and I both have the things that we are looking for in dogs. What are some of the questions, and we can ping pong even, like, what should people be asking in your opinion? See, I put you on the spot.
No, I kind of anticipated something like this, but I want to make sure I get it, I get it right, and not say something that's, off the wall. It doesn't make sense. I normally start out with, can you tell me about your dogs? How long have you had hounds? Can you explain that to me?
The backstory.
Yeah, I want to hear the backstory. And the reason I want to hear the backstory is I'm very interested in hearing how that individual got into hounds and then how we ended up here. And then I'll ask, so why did you choose the line that you did? And I'll say this before I move on. I don't believe a guy when it says, well, I don't, and this is kind of where I think things get mixed up, where they say I don't hunt papers because they don't want to talk about the names. We'll just, for the sake of the conversation, I'll say like, so how did you end up on Pocahontas dogs, which is, a plot line? Oh, yeah. Well,
pretty
because
well-known one.
because of their grit and X, Y, and Z. For you folks that run Pocahontas blood, I know of the line. I don't know all of it, and I don't hunt plots. I like them. They're pretty cool, but we're just
using an example.
Just using an example. So, and then I'll ask, so how do you do your breeding? Can you tell me about that? And they'll go on and be like, well, I think about how I'm going to breed in the aspect of I usually keep my dogs pretty tight. The line bred, I like line bred dogs. This is as if I'm the breeder talking to me.
Right.
And I like their grit, so I want to keep that grit. They got good feet. They've got good noses. The way that they're built, it's what I like. Well, how big are they? Well, and this again,
and it just rolls,
and it goes on from there, and they're like, okay, cool. So how do you? What's the style? How do you hunt? And they'll say, well, I normally just drive around in a truck and I'll turn out on a track and then we go from there. Okay. So why are you, how many, or here's a good one too. Like, how often do you breed? This is a good one because, most serious breeders don't breed that often. And they breed for themselves first and foremost, which I think is important to listen to. But in my mind, that speaks to me more than the folks that are constantly turning pups out. And the reason for that is because if you're breeding for yourself, you are thinking a lot more about your cross than most average folks.
Yep.
You're just, that's just my experience.
If you want to hunt it, right, it's a different value. I think we put a value on that. If a guy's breeding and he says, hey, I might have some pups left over, but I only breed when I need stock. Like, that's going to be a guy that I really would pay attention to. Instead of, well, I've got 3 litters booked for, the next 6 months and we can take a deposit. And, again, not knocking anybody, whatever. You've run your own ship. I'm just saying that's a pretty massive scale, to be doing that. And if you're not fully dedicated, I would just ask those questions. I'm not saying don't, do business or whatever. It's just more important to ask these questions.
At the end of the day, it's your money. But at the end of the day, it's your money, right? So it's like, I can sit here and tell you some questions that I ask. But at the end of the day, you're a grown-ass man or a grown-ass woman. You can make your own decisions on your own. I just would encourage that you make the best decision for you and your situation. And usually that's about the extent that I ask. I usually kind of spur off of that.
Well,
If
what
they,
I like about those, I mean, and what stands out to me, and those are all very open-ended questions. It's like a job interview, man. Like
yeah,
if I ask you a specific question, well, do your dogs have a cold nose? If you can answer that question with a yes and no, that's a little different. I weigh that differently than if I were to say, hey, tell me about your dog's nose. If I ask you where your dog's cold nose, you know I'm looking for a cold nose. Do your own due diligence. Tell me, it's like a kid in their painting, man. Tell me about your painting. Don't ask them what it is. You know what I mean? Like it's
mm-hmm.
you, all of your questions were open ended without trying to influence it in any way. And I think that that is extremely smart when you're talking to somebody that you don't have rapport with, you don't have
uh,
a relationship with. When it's your hunting buddy, it's a way different story. You know, Brandon tells me about a cross or a dog or something, like I don't have to question motives behind it, or if we're trying to move puppies for somebody or whatever, like it's because he thinks it's a good dog.
mm-hmm.
Where you asking questions like that, if you're thinking about buying a puppy, I encourage everybody right now, back that up. Re-listen to some of those questions, because as somebody who was breeding and buying puppies, I'll tell you those are some great questions to ask before getting into it.
Yeah, and I've kind of arrived at those questions by experience and by reading some material. Um, Look, my experience, why I arrived at those, I got tired of getting burned.
Mm-hmm.
I did. I got so tired and so upset of getting burned. I'm like, I can't. This can't go on. This can't go on. I need to be smarter about this because I'm spending money that essentially I don't have, and
Mm-hmm.
and here I am stuck with this dog or dogs, and now what?
Mm-hmm.
Now somebody got their money. They
You're
essentially,
obligated to give them an
mm-hmm.
honest shot and take your time. And
And there's some dogs get along better with other people, and I think that needs to be thought about. Um, you know, another what I try to do as well is I try and hunt with the breeder if allowed.
mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's not, and if it's not, I will ask more questions on that. Like, so why? I would like to come out and see the parents, maybe the grandparents, depending on how their program is set up. If the grandparents are still around, I would like to see how you hunt. I would like to see the parents hunt. And usually they'll be like, "Yeah, man, come on. My
Right.
door's my door's always open. You can come on in." And obviously you want to be respectful in that situation because yeah, they're being courteous and they're opening their door to you. But this is still a business potential business transaction that's going on.
Sure.
And so paying attention to, and this is where you can ask like specific questions face to face. And like, so you say that, Buzz, the dad of those pups, is cold nose. What can you explain what cold nose is? Because let's be honest, we have all heard
Yeah.
that podcast and that conversation of my dog's cold nose.
Right.
What does cold nose mean to you? You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
it's not it is or not. Everybody has their own definition of it, and yeah,
It's it's the same as going to I'll go to my home state and they'd be like, "Oh man, it's windy today. It's 5 to 10 miles an hour.
right. It's all relevant.
Yeah, windy here is like what it is right now. It's at least 50-55 right now."
Mm-hmm.
So ask those questions. There's nothing wrong with that, but you have to learn to ask them respectively
If you can ask
and tactfully.
respectfully, nobody that's taking this serious is going to be offended by your questions, I don't think.
No,
As long
and
as you're being respectful.
these questions are not questions to specifically ask the Western hunters. The folks that in the Midwest and the East, you can take these questions and ask them too. They're not specific questions tied to a certain thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so like I said, I just kind of spin off of that. If they don't allow you to hunt, then again, I would tactfully ask, can you explain to me why I can't come out? Well, it's because of X, Y, and Z. Most of the time, they're going to be honest with you if they say they don't want you out, most of the time. But let's be honest, if you're listening intently, you'll know if it's BS.
Right.
If they don't want you to see it, you should not do business. It's just simple, you know? It's like, oh, I'm selling you a product. Well, can I see the product? No, but I'm still selling it. Okay.
Right.
No, I'm good. Thanks. Have a good day. Um,
Also,
but
be respectful and don't waste their time. Like
and that's
tire kicking.
one of the best tips of advice that I was given was when you do conclude that conversation, you do say, "Hey, listen, I appreciate your time that you gave to
Right.
me to speak with me about your dogs. I do appreciate it." And then you guys can say whatever you want to say, but yeah, you have to think about that. But don't waste their time, along with don't waste your time. If it's something that you think that's not going to work for you, don't waste your time. Don't waste their time.
Yep.
It's
And don't waste the dog's time.
yeah, you know, on the buyers on the seller side of it, this this is where I think that the power, so to speak, belongs to the breeder because
Mm-hmm.
you dictate where your stock goes. Why
Yep.
why should I why should I let a pup go to you? Can you tell me why? So it's a two-way street, and
Mm-hmm.
as long as that dialect happens, then we're fine. So yeah, we started out this podcast talking about papers, but now we're talking about questions of the buyer and seller. But in reality, they really go together.
Mm-hmm.
They do because if a guy wants or guy or gal wants to get a paper dog, you need to be asking the breeder these questions. And the breeder needs to be asking the buyer these questions too. And not papered, it's the same deal. Same deal.
Mm-hmm.
There's no different.
Knowledge is power. I mean, really. And when it comes to dogs, I mean, anyone can tell a good dog story. But if you can open up that dialogue with somebody that, narrow it down. Like I will say this, like you're saying, give these guys a call. And most of them are very receptive. Most hound guys will talk to you. But do your homework in narrowing down your first couple rounds of cuts first. Focus on the one or I'd say 2 to 3 people that you're really considering buying a pup from, and then reach out. You don't use their time as a general gathering of information. Scope them out on their socials. Do the research. Look at. I mean, in the papered world, look at the win histories and things like that before you even get on the phone with them. Don't waste their time with questions that you can already access a vague answer to, I would say is another one for me. But maybe that's wrong. I don't know. I think
No,
you can get
I
down to the
think
meat and potatoes then a lot faster and make your cuts and not waste a bunch of time.
I I think um, I think to build on what you're saying, which is good. It is good because that's the thing that we have nowadays is we have social media at our fingertips.
Mm-hmm.
Any you could do that with Western breeders too.
I
There's
just
a
did
lot.
it the other day.
Hmm.
Like literally, probably 2 months ago, I was talking with Burchell Davis. He owns that Frogger dog, and what I see of him, I really like him. I didn't get too far in the weeds with him, other than, are you only doing live breedings or do you ship semen? And he says, right now we're only doing, XYZ.
Hmm.
And his answer just kind of ruled me out for now. I'm not going to waste his time. I'm going to give it a little bit and I'm going to do a little more research and then we're going to revisit this later down the road. But like you can really weed a lot of that out early on in your conversation.
Yeah, you absolutely can. There, as we all know, if you do this type of research, you know right away what comments to weed out because they're just somebody got their feelings hurt, and it's just this isn't a valuable comment. this just doesn't help anybody. But there's other comments on there or whatever. I kind of treat them as reviews,
Mm-hmm.
um, that are good, and you go through that. So that then when you go into it, you can ask them certain questions. Um, excuse me, but yeah, yeah,
Question everything.
yeah. There's nothing wrong with questioning everything and understanding why, how, what, how did we get here? Why is this happening? Or why does this dog do this? Or why do you do this? Like, there's nothing wrong with understanding that. If we can get to the understanding part, I think a lot of folks would be a lot more happier.
Yeah. No, I agree with you, man. Well, that kind of went. I don't know. Like, I didn't know what I had expected when we got on here today. Like, in some ways, because we've talked so much over the last couple of years about this kind of stuff. But I think you hit it right on the head, man. Like, do your research and ask these questions regardless. Because the end product is you got a living, breathing thing standing there in front of you. No matter what's tied to it or what's not tied to it, it's still you and that dog. And that's the important part. So you might as well do your research.
Yeah, and this is. I mean, yeah, we've talked about it a lot, and I'm sure we missed a couple things that I wanted to talk about. But when you're talking about something on a general term that is pretty contentious, it's hard to really stay out of the little rabbit trails that folks get down in.
I know. I know. Was there anything that stood out specifically I might have sped over you wanted to touch on?
Nothing off the top of my head right now.
We'll think about it tonight and you'll message me in the morning. That's how it usually goes. It's like, dang it, I wish I would have said this. Or why didn't we take that softball and crush it? But
No,
no, I appreciate it.
I think we got covered what we had talked about. I mean, like I said, it's hard to stay out of it and get down and not super offend people, but at the same time, by me talking about it, by Jason and I talking about it today, if you're upset, then maybe I got you thinking.
Ruffled some feathers for a reason.
Yeah, and if you truly do believe that your process is what it is, and you're upset by some things that were said today, okay, I don't have a problem with that. It's just something to talk about. It just
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we don't have a lot of good, clean, thoughtful, different perspectives to think about some of these topics on.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a my way or the highway type of conversation. I'm like, no, man, there's a lot of different perspectives to think about all this stuff from.
100 ways to skin a cat. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah. And there's constant variables, and I don't usually do this. I will just throw this out there, though, because we've referenced it so many times during this podcast. The one that we're referring to, it was episode 340, and it's titled Do Papers Need Grades? And it was one that I had recorded with Cody Hilliard, who's a good buddy of mine, and it was about, he actually wrote an article for Full Cry with the same title. It's going to be coming out here in a future issue. But it was just a good topic, and that's what we keep referring to. If you keep hearing us talk about the podcast with Cody and you guys did miss it for some reason, you can go back and check it out. It was episode 340 on the Hound podcast. That's my only other plug. But yeah, man, no, I appreciate it. And we never did introduce you in this thing, Stephan, but thanks for coming on again.
Yeah, no worries. I appreciate you guys having me on again.
Yeah. No, and we're working on follow-up. I know I talked to Roaque about, her daughter did that presentation on scent and how it affects like the hunting dogs and scents, and she went to the state fair with it. So we're still trying to figure that out. So Roaque, if you're listening, I know it's probably dropped the ball a couple times here. Like me and Buddy have been talking about it too. We need to get her back on because I think she was wanting to do like the whole presentation. Like have it physically there and we could just record it and go through. It's really cool. I'm super, super proud of her. She's a really cool little lady.
Yeah, I'm really, really blown away how far she took that, and I'm glad she did.
She's got great parents, man. I will say this, like,
Well, good.
they have encouraged her, and she has like the story of that girl, and just like working to get her own dog, and like they're making her do this. Yes, there's some guidance there, but that girl knows the value, and it's really cool to see. And she took a lot of pride in that project and did really well. I mean, like, it was really cool. So
good.
I know you and I talked about that too, but I did bring it up. We touched base a couple months ago, but we're going to have to circle back on that one too.
Yeah, that'd be cool I'd be very curious to see how she did it and her thought process through it.
Cause I'm going to kill a couple of seconds here. Okay. Cause I want to look up and see, I believe that one was the Scent Storm was brewing. Oh, let's see. That one we did with you about scents and how everything's affected.
Yeah, and I talked about weather in that one.
Yep, the weather. So that one, and which sparked her kind of project here, that one was episode 104. That one's been a while back. It was like 2 years ago. But yeah, it's kind of coming full circle. She did that, and I know we wanted to revisit it. So hopefully we'll have her on again soon.
That sounds good.
Your dogs. Sounds like you're ready to go take care of dogs again.
Yeah, I was hearing a bunch of noise. I'm like, what's going on out there?
Well, hopefully it's not as eventful as last time, and we'll catch you later, man.
I don't think so. I think we're good.
Right on. Well, thanks for coming back on, man. That was a great conversation.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.